This build works well with any race or origin you prefer. However, for power picks, there are a select few who can fully capitalize on its burst power. For your custom race, Duergar is an excellent choice, as they have non-concentration enlarge at level 3 to boost weapon damage by 1d4, and unlimited invisibility at level 5, which goes well with the build's stealthy playstyle. When it comes to origins, Asterion is the best pick thanks to his unique vampire traits. Starting from Act 1, his Vampire Bite grants a bonus to all attack rolls, saving throws, and ability checks, making him stronger and better all around. If Lead ascends in Act 3, Asterion becomes much more powerful, gaining an additional 1d10 necrotic damage to all weapon attacks. Minthara is another great character to put the build on, who uses Soul Branding to boost both her and the party damage output, by adding 2d4 plus 1 fire damage on the next attack. This buff is especially effective with any type of multi-attacks that use a single action, as the bonus will apply to each damage instance made by that attack, something this build can take advantage of quite often. Dexterity is your primary stat for boosting damage and accuracy with ranged weapons, as well as bonus modifiers to your initiative and armor class. Charisma is the substat, to help you do a bit of spell casting with Bard early on. It also improves dialogue checks if you decide to use this build on your main character. With this multi-class setup, you will have 2 feats. Take Sharpshooter as your first feat for a flat damage boost to ranged attacks. For your second feat, choose Ability Score Improvement to add 2 more points to Dexterity. Then acquire the Hag Hair to round up Dexterity to 20, and later in Act 3, use the Mirror of Loss to gain another 2 points, bringing your total Dexterity to 22. When just starting, it's better to go with Rogue for a strong early game. They can perform Sneak Attack to add an extra 1d6 damage every turn. This is a great bonus at lower levels, since most enemies still have relatively low HP, and the damage increases as you gain more levels in Rogue. To proc Sneak Attack, you need to have advantage on attack or have your target within melee range of an ally, which is easily fulfilled when playing with a party. Later on, the build will gain multiple permanent sources of advantage through class features and equipment, allowing you to consistently activate Sneak Attack at your convenience. As a Bard and Rogue multi-class, you'll eventually excel in many skill checks. Getting expertise in Sleight of Hand and Perception is recommended to improve the character's ability to steal and explore. When playing this build as a face character, you might want to prioritize expertise in dialogue checks instead. At level 2, Rogue can dash, disengage, and hide using a bonus action. These cunning actions are useful in a pinch, whether you need to kite enemies from a distance or escape when a fight goes wrong. At level 3, Sneak Attack damage increases to 2d6, and Rogue gains access to their subclass. For this build, we'll choose Assassin. The subclass comes with 3 major features. Assassin's Alacrity refreshes all used actions and bonus actions in the first round after you initiate combat with an attack. While other classes typically deplete their action resources for the first round when initiating combat this way, this feature essentially grants Assassin up to 2 additional attacks for free, because hand crossbows can make 2 attacks using a single command. When you initiate combat out of hiding or invisibility to trigger surprise on enemies, the ambush feature will turn any successful attack roll against a surprise target into a critical hit. This feature applies to about 90% of the encounters in the game, with only a few exceptions where target has the alert feat, making them unable to be surprised. However, the build has its own ways of dealing with them, so they'll go down like the rest. This makes assassins incredibly strong throughout all stages of the game. Keep in mind that these are not natural critical rolls, meaning you still need to land the shots. This leads us to the final feature, where the assassin automatically gains free advantage on attack rolls against enemies that haven't taken their turn yet, greatly enhancing your hit chance in the first round. To set up an ambush, first unlink the assassin from the group, then initiate the attack from stealth, whether by sneaking in normally or using an invisibility potion or spell to simply walk straight in. Once the ambush is set, you can have the nearby party join in at any time, allowing them to enjoy a free surprise round as well. That said, assassin playstyle does require a bit of planning ahead, as setting up ambushes for every potential fight is highly encouraged. Otherwise, you'll miss out on a large portion of the subclass's features.
You did good, stranger.
By taking the sharpshooter feat, your ranged weapon attacks gain a big boost with an additional 10 damage, though at the cost of a -5 penalty to attack rolls. However, the penalty can be offset by the Assassin subclass feature, equipment, and buffs. Once you reach level 6, go Respec into a Bard, as this is the breakpoint where the Sword Bard unlocks all of its major power spikes. The build will quickly regain its Assassin subclass afterward. Minor Illusion is great for grouping enemies, making it easier to line up your shots or area attacks. Since it doesn't break invisibility, you can manipulate the battlefield as much as needed before engaging. Longstrider is a useful buff to give yourself and the party extra movement speed. It is a ritual spell, so casting it outside of combat won't consume any spell slots. Song of Rest works just like a short rest, effectively giving you 3 rests per day. This is especially useful as most of the build's resources restore on a short rest. College of Swords subclass is chosen specifically for its Slashing Flourish, a weapon ability capable of delivering powerful burst damage. This ability allows you to make 2 ranged attacks using a single action, with each attack receiving additional bonus damage that scales with Bardic Inspiration die. When paired with the Assassin subclass and multiple damage stacking boosts, this combo can effortlessly delete nearly any target with absolute precision, especially when you get the jump on them. Swordbard also gains a fighting style. Pick 2 weapon fighting for dual-hand crossbows, so your offhand attacks can have dexterity modifier added to its weapon attack damage as well. Having access to invisibility spell is helpful for setting up ambushes, but because the spell requires concentration, using an invisibility potion is often better in scenarios where optimal damage output is preferred, as it frees up your concentration for more impactful damage-boosting buffs. Bard can also assist with ability checks by combining Enhance Ability and Bardic Inspiration. They will help unskilled characters pass most ability checks in the game. With 5 levels in Bard, Bardic Inspiration die becomes 1d8 for the purpose of improving your Slashing Flourish damage or ability checks. Bardic Inspiration also replenishes after a short or long rest, so you can freely spam Slashing Flourish for burst damage without holding back. If you want to be extra fancy, Glyph of Warding Trap can be placed around the battlefield before the fight, to squeeze in a bit more area damage or hinder enemy movements with its crowd control options. With extra attack feature, you can now make 2 weapon attacks per action. In Honor mode, this feature is limited only to your default action and action surge. Over the next 4 levels, multiclass back into Rogue to regain the Assassin subclass and obtain an additional feat. The last 2 levels will go into Fighter. Pick the archery fighting style to boost your ranged weapon attack rolls. With Action Surge, you gain an extra action once per short rest, and it can trigger the extra attack feature, letting you dish out even more attacks to maximize the damage output during the ambush round. Although this is an archery-focused build, it won't be relying much on special arrows. Thanks to Slashing Flourish, you already have access to essentially a stronger version of Slaying Arrow, capable of more than doubling your damage as early as level 6. However, when facing multiple enemies, having Arrow of many targets around is still handy for clearing out groups of enemies at once. Meanwhile, Slashing Flourish is best saved for dealing high burst damage against stronger targets. Illithid Powers can add some valuable synergies to this build, making it worthwhile to choose a select few powers to enhance your combat effectiveness. Luck of the Far Realm is really handy to have against enemy with Alert passive. Since they're immune to the Assassin's auto-crit feature, you can pop this power instead to guarantee a crit and take them down as easily as any other foe. Outside of those specific enemies, feel free to use Luck of the Far Realm whenever needed, as it's only one of the few tools Assassin can deploy against them. The damage boost from Psionic Overload is quite effective, given you have the Awakened passive to use it as a bonus action, adding 1d4 psychic damage to every attacks. It's essentially an additional 2d4 damage with Assassin guaranteed crits, or 4d4 once you have Resonance Stone for the psychic damage vulnerability. Otherwise, it's generally not worth using as an action, because actions are often better spent on Slashing Flourish or arrows of many targets during the ambush round. Ability Drain is a nice little bonus to increase your accuracy by reducing enemy AC that use dexterity. This power also activates some of the gear effects you'll be equipping. Transfuse Health makes it easier to lower your HP to the right threshold, allowing you to activate more offensive buffs like Loviatar's Love and Helmet of Grit. If you decide to go full Brainiac, then Cull the Weak is very powerful, as it confirms kill low HP enemies. This saves you the actions or resources that would have been used to finish them off. With the Honor Mode extra attack rule, this build can make up to 14 attacks in the first round and 6 attacks in subsequent rounds. For starters, the Assassin can initiate a fight using 2-hand crossbow attacks, with all actions restored once combat begins, thanks to its subclass feature. As both your regular action and Action Surge trigger the extra attack feature, you can perform 4 Slashing Flourish, adding up to 8 additional attacks. This is followed by 2 more attacks from Haste and Bloodlust. And finally, 2 bonus action attacks to wrap things up, with the extra one granted by the Helmet of Grit. Equipments highlighted in red are core gear of the build. If there are two core gear overlapping, it means either will work in case one piece is taken by other party member. This build's preferred ranged weapon is dual-wield hand crossbows. You can buy or steal the regular versions from weapon vendors early on. Once your party hits level 3 or higher, the +1 versions will be up for grabs and start showing up in vendor inventories. In the melee slots, if you happen to play as a half-elf or human with shield proficiency, you can throw on a shield for some extra protection, otherwise it can be left empty. As for the main hand stat sticks, your best options for Act 1 are either Knife of Undermountain King or Falar Aluv Longsword. The knife helps you deal more consistent damage by re-rolling any damage dice that come up as 2 or less. However, the longsword is better for even greater damage potential, as its Shriek aura provides 1d4 thunder damage to every attack. It's also ideal to have Shriek aura pre-casted beforehand, and while you can wield Falar Aluv yourself, it would be more efficient in the hands of a frontliner when playing with a party. Shadow of Menzoberranzan is quite handy at this early stage, to ensure you always have invisibility ready to sneak up on enemies, in case you're running low on invisibility potions or spell slots. Later you can swap it out for Diadem of Arcane Synergy, to get bonus damage based on your spellcasting modifier. That's +3 weapon damage from having 16 charisma. And by having Illithid Power ability Drain learned, you can trigger the Diadem's bonus simply by attacking. Deathstalker Mantle isn't a must-have, but will complement the build quite well, as it lets you take riskier positions early on, and then safely hid yourself away from harm with invisibility after getting a kill. Graceful Cloth increases your dexterity by 2. Combined with the bonus of +1 dexterity from Hag Hair, you'll hit the soft cap of 20 dexterity right from Act 1, greatly enhancing your character's overall performance. Gloves of Archery adds 2 extra damage to your ranged attacks. With Water Sparker's Boots, you gain a +1 bonus to attack rolls, and deal 1 extra lightning damage when starting your turn on a water surface. It can be set up by tossing a water bottle or create water on spot before engaging. Since the bonus is pretty small, you don't need to soak yourself for every fight. Instead, you can consider doing this for the tougher battles where every bit of damage and accuracy counts. Amulet of Branding is a powerful item that lets you brand an enemy, rendering it vulnerable to physical damage, effectively doubling the total damage inflicted on that target. This is especially valuable in Honor mode, where such ability is rather limited. Along with Bard Slashing Flourish and guaranteed critical hits from Assassin or Illithid Power, very few enemies will be left standing after you've finished your dance. But all that burst damage won't matter if your hits don't land, and that's where the Whispering Promise comes in, granting a +1 d4 bonus to attack rolls on heal. Better yet, if someone else in the party is already capable of casting Bless or healing during battle, they can have Whispering Promise instead. That way, you can equip 2 damage-boosting rings and really ramp up your damage output. Keep in mind that Strange Conduit Ring requires the wearer to maintain concentration on a spell to activate the 1d4 psychic damage. As a bard, you have a good selection of concentration spells, with Enhance ability being the most practical due to its infinite duration. As you progress, there will be better options to concentrate on, such as Enlarge, which adds 1d4 weapon damage, or Crusader's Mantle, offering 1d4 radiant damage. Equipments highlighted in yellow are buff tools that are not meant to be equipped, but only to strengthen your character before initiating combat. Hellfire Hand Crossbow is a very rare +2 version. It makes for a solid main hand in Act 2. There is also the NieR Misser that does force damage for your offhand, perfect for overcoming enemies with resistance to piercing damage. Drakethroat Glaive serves as a powerful buffing tool to further strengthen your hand crossbows, granting them +1 weapon enhancement and +1 d4 additional elemental damage of your choice. This can be done by first dropping one of your crossbows on the ground, then get a sorcerer to twin the spell on both weapons at the same time. The buff will last until next long rest. If you often find yourself forgetting to set up ambushes or fights that happen to drag on for more than 2 rounds, then Risky Ring has you covered. It guarantees advantage on attack rolls at all times, so the assassin can still hit their mark in combat regardless of any unexpected setbacks. Otherwise, stick with the 2 damage ring setup if you're already used to the assassin playstyle. Only this time, Shadow Cloaked Ring will replace Caustic Band as a direct upgrade, because the 1d4 weapon damage bonus scales better with critical hits and pierce vulnerability. The same applies to your gloves, with Flawed Hell Dusk over gloves of archery. In Act 3, you'll pick up another +2 hand crossbow to complete the ranged weapon setup, though there's still plenty more powerful gear left to collect and improve your arsenal. With the Polished Armor, you can now enjoy 100% uptime on Pierce vulnerability, doubling your weapon damage against any foes standing within the armor's aura of murder. However, the wearer will have to get up close and personal to impose this aura on enemies. Alternatively, Polished Armor can be utilized on another frontliner when playing with a party, allowing for the use of elegant studded leather or mutilated carapace armors. The Elegant Armor offers a +2 bonus to initiative and extra protection from the shield spell, while Mutilated Carapace boosts your attack and damage rolls when disguised, which can be activated using Mask of the Shapeshifter. Seeing that it's easier to make enemies vulnerable to piercing damage, Amulet of Branding may feel somewhat redundant at this point. But you can still take advantage of the vulnerabilities to slashing and bludgeoning damage if your party members deal those damage types. Otherwise, Broodmother Revenge is your best bet, adding an extra 1d6 poison coating to your ranged weapon attacks. By the end of the second act, Resonant Stone can be taken with you to provide another aura that makes nearby creatures vulnerable to psychic damage, doubling the extra damage from Strange Conduit Ring and Psionic Overload. Given how few enemies are capable of doing psychic attacks, this aura helps you way more than it hurts. Thanks to Assassin's ability to guarantee critical hits, they have excellent synergy with some of the powerful crit damage gear in Act 3. First item on that list is the Crater Flesh Gloves, which adds extra force damage to your attacks on crit. This bonus damage counts as part of the critical hit, so you're actually getting 2d6 force damage on every attack. Next up, we have the Dolar Amorous Daggers serving as your stat sticks. Each one adds a flat damage boost of 7 to critical hits, totaling 14 damage. When you factor in Pierce vulnerability, that 14 jumps to a solid 28 damage. Moreover, due to a bug, this damage also gets added to Crater Flesh Gloves, giving you an additional 14 force damage. All in all, you're looking at a massive 42 bonus damage boost on each of your attacks, making Dolar Amorous easily your best in slot for Act 3. As for how to obtain 2 of them, the first one is dropped by Dolar himself, and the second one is available for purchase after you've become an unholy assassin.
Spawn.
If for any reason you miss the chance to acquire them, the Ambusher and Rhapsody combo can be used as alternative stat sticks. Ambusher adds up to 2d6 necrotic damage on a critical hit against creatures that haven't taken a turn yet, and a +1 bonus initiative to help make that happen. Rhapsody, on the other hand, offers a +3 bonus to both attack and damage rolls, which effectively doubles to 6 damage against vulnerable targets. When it comes to headgear, you have a couple of options to choose from. Helmet of Grit is great for a high-risk, high-reward playstyle, granting an extra bonus action for one more attack per turn when you're low on health. You can safely set up the buff in advance by using Transfuse Health on a nearby creature. If you prefer to keep things simple, then stick with the Diadem of Arcane Synergy for more bonus damage. Or pick up the new Mask of Soul Perception from Act 3, which boosts your attack rolls and initiative by 2. With the Holy Warrior Cloak, you can cast Crusader's Mantle every short rest, creating an aura that grants 1d4 radiant damage on weapon attacks for the party. Alongside Crusader's Mantle, Enlarge is another strong spell for boosting weapon damage, though you'll need scrolls to cast it yourself. Ideally, it should be cast on you by another party member, allowing both buffs to stack together. However, if you have to choose just one, Enlarge is the better pick, as it can become much stronger thanks to Pierce vulnerability. Potion of Speed is really good for the additional action per turn for more attacks, on top of 2 bonus AC and doubled movement speed. You could also throw the potion on the ground before battle, then walk over the cloud in combat to get hastened without consuming any action. In case the Broodmother's Revenge Amulet is contested by another party member, your next best options for direct damage coatings are to dip your weapons in Torchfire or apply Oil of Sharpness. Dipped-in fire weapons deal an extra 1d4 fire damage, or up to 2d4 on crits, putting it close to Broodmother Amulet. Oil of Sharpness adds +1 weapon damage, which becomes +2 against vulnerable targets. Though slightly weaker, it still offers better accuracy and longer effect duration than other 2 options. For elixirs, I'd go with the Elixir of Bloodlust for an additional action on kill each turn. The more attacks you can squeeze in a round, the better the burst damage. Another solid option is Elixir of Vigilance for situational use. It gives a +5 initiative boost to ensure you always go first and take full advantage of assassin class features. This is especially useful against enemies with the alert feat, who usually have high initiative themselves. For those who don't plan on using Illithid Power, they can drink Potion of Flying instead for more mobility.